Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Alexa and I'm a first year PA student at McMaster University in Ontario, Canada. In this video, I'm going to be talking all about the MMI. I'm going to be giving you guys a rundown about what the MMI is, and then also my top 5 strategies to kill the MMI. This is actually going to be the first video in an MMI series that I'm going to be doing, and in those next videos, I'm actually going to devote a specific video to each different type of MMI question, and I'll also include relevant examples. So definitely subscribe and turn your post notifications on if you want to be reminded for that. But without further ado, if you're interested in learning more about the MMI, then just keep watching. So I'll start off by giving you guys just kind of a brief overview about what the MMI is. So the MMI stands for multiple mini interview. It's essentially the interview stage, and it's notoriously known for being one of the most difficult interviews to do, but trust me, if you prepare for it efficiently, you can do very well. This is essentially how a traditional MMI is set up. Traditionally, you'll have 12 stations, and at each station there's a different interviewer who will be asking you a question. Those questions can be anything. There are specific types of MMI questions that you should prepare for that I will talk to you about in this video and then in the future videos like I mentioned, but you should honestly be prepared for anything. So the whole point of the MMI is that you have 12 different kind of opinions on the applicant. Now the MMI is not necessarily an interview that you can just walk in cold. It does require a lot of preparation because they don't just ask you typical interview questions. So you could get a whole range of questions, but these are the classic types of MMI questions that you can see. So they might ask you personal questions just about yourself, other questions related to the profession that you want to get into, the school that you're applying for, ethical dilemma type questions. So they might give you a scenario and ask you how you would navigate the scenario, but it's a very difficult kind of ethical, challenging scenario. You either policies or current event questions, so you need to have knowledge of those kinds of current events and things that are going on in the world. And then the last type of question is quirky questions about completely random things that seem very irrelevant. So what did you have for breakfast? Or if you were an animal, what would you be? That being said, like I mentioned before, these are the classic types of MMI questions, but honestly, nothing is off the table. They could ask you literally anything. So make sure that you're aware of that before going into this interview. Before I jump into the tips, I will say every school does their MMI a little bit different. So whether it's 12 stations or however much time you have to answer the question will vary depending on the school. When I applied during COVID, my MMI was actually online and it was asynchronous, so I didn't have an interviewer facing me. I literally just had a screen with a question that came up and it would just record me speaking, and that was automatically sent into the program. I'm not sure if it's the same this cycle, so you definitely want to keep up with all of the emails from the schools that you're applying to make sure that you're very aware of the format. I should also mention I'm not affiliated with any of the admissions departments for any of the schools. I have no idea about how they evaluate applicants, what they're looking for in the MMI. I just know what helped me based on my personal experiences and the things that I found helpful, and so I'm relaying that to you guys, but by no means do I know exactly what they're looking for. So that's essentially how the MMI is structured. So now I'll move on to talk about my top 5 tips. Like I said, I'm gonna make future videos all about how to tackle the specific different types of MMI questions that you could see, but these are kind of general tips that I have to make sure that you're preparing very efficiently and very well for the MMIs. So for my first tip, it is to use efficient resources. Sometimes when you get an interview and you're all excited, you want to use every single resource that's out there, and I would caution you against that. You really need to pick the resources where you're going to get the most out of your time with. So for example, for me personally, I don't necessarily believe in prep books. I know a lot of people recommend prep books. There's people in my program, my classmates, who have used prep books, and you know what, if it works for you, that's great. But I just think prep books can be an inefficient use of time, because at the end of the day, when they're evaluating you, they're interested in how well you can speak. So reading a prep book for a few days or a week is not necessarily gonna help you become a better speaker. If you do want to learn about the MMI, you can literally Google that and spend maybe an hour just looking a little bit about what the MMI is and what you can expect on it. Whereas a prep book could take you pretty long to read, as they tend to be very dense. You can also get free practice questions online. There's thousands of them, and I will have some linked below that I use. And also prep books are expensive most of the time. So the information is out there on the internet. It'll take you much less time to sift through than if you were to get a prep book, and it's also free. So I would recommend than literally just using the internet. I think it'll be a better use of your time. You'll be able to get the information more efficiently without spending all that time reading a book. Speaking of books, there is a very common classic MMI prep book, and that's a book called Doing Right. So I'm sure this is an incredible book. I personally have never read it, but I've heard really good things. However, again, this book is extremely dense. This book is commonly used to learn about healthcare ethics, and in my opinion, there's a more efficient way to learn about those topics, and this is kind of like a hidden gem or a hidden secret. I don't think many people know about it, but it is a free website called the University of Washington's Medical Ethics website. It is sorted based on topics, so you can literally click on any different topic that you want to learn about. There'll be a short reading giving you some background information about the topic, and then at the end, there's also practice questions with answers. The one caveat to that is it is an American website, so there are some topics that you'll just want to do a quick Google search about the Canadian policies and guidelines on, because that can be a little bit different. But other than that, I thought it was very fast to go through. I will link that website in the description box below, and I highly recommend it. And then again, practice as much as possible. Reading about the MMI is not necessarily going to help you as much as actually practicing questions. So it's really important that you prioritize practice over reading. Another good resource to learn about current events in a really efficient way is through podcasts. So I really liked learning from this because I could multitask. If I was cleaning my house, if I was commuting, if I was driving somewhere, I would literally just put the podcast on and I would have that influx of information while I was doing something else. So you can use those downtimes in your life towards something that's actually productive. In my personal opinion, I think the most successful people in the world are people who are efficient like that. It's not necessarily about how much time you put into your prep, it's about how effective your prep is. So my second tip for you guys is to practice with people who are going to be honest with you. This is very, very important. If you practice with people who are just going to tell you that you sound great all the time, you're not going to be able to improve, and you won't know your areas of weakness that you need to tackle in the next few weeks before your MMI. It's really, really, really important that you practice with people who are invested in your success. I cannot stress that enough. So for me personally, when I was preparing for the MMIs, I practiced with two friends. One of them who was in medical school, one of them who was in teachers college. They were really great because they gave me two unique perspectives on my answers. One of those people had a background in healthcare, so they kind of knew a little bit about what the MMIs were about, and they could also give me that healthcare perspective, whereas the other person didn't necessarily have a background in healthcare, but she was able to give me an opinion on how I sounded. And you have to remember, when you are answering your questions during your MMI, it could be literally anyone who is going to evaluate your answer. It doesn't necessarily have to be a healthcare provider. So you need to make sure that whatever information you're communicating, you're doing so in a very clear, easy to understand way. And so practicing with people like that can help you gain a sense of if you're able to do that. So something I didn't do that a lot of people ask me if I did do is if I practice with other applicants. I personally didn't practice with other applicants, but I know a lot of people in my class did, so it does work if it's something that you're comfortable with. But when I was applying, I was just a little bit concerned about if someone who I didn't know was actually going to be honest with me about how I sounded, much less someone who was competing for the same small amount of spots that I was. That's just something to think about, but by no means does it mean you shouldn't. There were people in my class who prepared with other applicants and they were successful, so it's just kind of a personal preference thing. The best thing that you can do for yourself when it comes to practicing with others is to make sure those other people that you're practicing with are honest with you and are very invested in your success as a person. My third tip for you guys is to just become a good speaker in general, literally about anything. Like I mentioned earlier, there are the classic types of MMI questions that you might see that you should prepare for a lot. However, you could be asked literally anything. There was one of my MMIs that I did, and I literally just had to rely on my innate ability to speak. I was accepted, so it did work out, but you should really, really, really be able to confidently speak about anything, even something that you have next to no knowledge about. How I practiced that was literally just asking those two people to ask me random questions that came to their mind about random things, and that really helped me just feel a little bit more confident as a speaker and also be able to form really impactful kind of answers even when I had next to no knowledge about something. So just practice speaking about anything in general, become a confident speaker. That way, if they hit you with something completely unexpected, you're not shaken, and it could happen. My fourth tip for you guys is to be honest, be honest about who you are and your personal experiences. If you try to make up things, it's going to sound very fake and ingenuine, and that could make them think twice about your video. It's really important that you kind of elucidate this genuineness from you. If you're very passionate, show that, because that can separate you from everyone else. Draw from experiences that you actually have, because you can speak passionately about them, and it's not something that's going to sound false or made up. So just make sure that what you draw from is pure honesty, because that will be elucidated through your responses and they'll be able to connect with that. So my last tip for you guys is to smile and act like it's the best day of your life. I know it's very, very, very stressful, and I know that that's such a simple tip, but trust me, you would be surprised at how many people don't actually smile in their interviews, just because it's really, really nerve-wracking, which is very understandable. But get past that, smile, act like it's the best day of your life, act like you're just happy to be there, because it is a privilege to get to that stage. So make sure that you show that excitement, you show that in happiness. My cheeks hurt literally after my interview because I was smiling for like the entire time, and I literally felt that in my face. So I would highly recommend that you guys smile, show them you're excited, show them you're happy, because it really is something that's going to separate you, because believe it or not, that's not necessarily easy to do under that kind of stress and nervousness. So I do want to mention just some general points towards the end of this video. So first of all, if they do have info sessions available to applicants after your MMI is done, go to them. You want to make sure that you go to any kind of program info session, because you might get multiple offers and you really want to see which program is going to be the best fit for you. They give away a lot of information that they wouldn't necessarily give just on the program website. Take advantage of those opportunities, take initiative to kind of go out of your way and seek that information out. So yeah, that's pretty much going to be all for today's video. I hope that was helpful. I know these are very general MMI tips, but like I mentioned, I'm going to be doing an MMI series on this channel, and every week will be a different MMI question type that I'll be going through with you guys. I'll tell you a little bit about the structure, how to structure a very kind of well-rounded answer, and then I'll also do an example for you guys. So hopefully that will be helpful. Good luck to everyone applying. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.